The pine trees swayed gently under a bright blue sky as I stepped out of my lakeside cabin with a mug of hot coffee in hand. The air smelled of wildflowers and pine sap, a welcome retreat from the chaos of the city. I'd just returned from deployment overseas and brought 5 of my closest military buddies with me. Men I trusted with my life, men who'd seen war. But today, they were just here to unwind. What we didn't expect was trouble, especially not from the HOA president of a nearby community who had no jurisdiction anywhere near my property. Her name was Karen Albridge, and she was exactly the kind of woman who took her title way too seriously. Her community was 3 lots away from mine, but she had a pair of binoculars that might as well have been a drone. And the moment she saw a group of unfamiliar men gathering by the fire pit on my private land, she made assumptions, the wrong ones. At exactly 11:13 a.m., she called 911. "There are trespassers," she whispered dramatically into the phone. "They're heavily armed. I think they're holding someone hostage." What she didn't know was that we weren't trespassers, we were the owners of this cabin. I had inherited it from my grandfather, a decorated war veteran himself, who left it to me as a sanctuary. Karen had no idea I was a SWAT commander back in the city, and that most of the men with me were part of my elite response team. We were on vacation, not on duty. But Karen decided to bring the battle to us. 15 minutes after her call, 2 sheriff's deputies pulled into my gravel driveway with their lights flashing. They got out with hands near their holsters, visibly confused by what they saw. "Sir, we received a call about suspicious activity here," one of them said. "Suspicious? I own this property," I replied calmly, showing them my deed and ID. "We're just having a weekend cookout." The other deputy nodded, stepping aside to call dispatch. But Karen wasn't done yet. From behind the trees, she emerged, pink sun visor, clipboard in hand, and her signature scowl in full force. "I knew something was wrong," she shrieked. "I don't recognize any of these people." I turned slowly. "Karen, this is my land. You don't recognize us because we don't belong to your HOA and never will." Her face flushed red, then white. "You live here? But you never registered. And look at them military types. Guns everywhere." My friend Deshawn, a calm and towering presence, stepped forward. "Ma'am, all our weapons are legal. We're on private property and you're trespassing now." That triggered her like gasoline on fire. Karen stormed back to her house, furious that the deputies weren't arresting anyone. She wasn't satisfied that the law had handled it. No, Karen wanted action. Her kind of justice. So, she called 911 again. This time, reporting terrorists stockpiling weapons near a public lakefront. That second call activated a higher threat protocol. By the time my team was marinating ribs for lunch, we saw 2 blacked-out SUVs speeding up the forest trail. Unmarked. Aggressive. I knew the drill. I waved my hand low to the guys. Alpha posture, non-threatening. Keep hands visible. Out of the SUVs poured a special response unit, guns drawn, barking commands. Hands where we can see them. We dropped what we were doing and raised our hands. My men didn't flinch. We'd faced far worse under fire. But this was personal. I stepped forward slowly. "Commander Alex Monroe, City SWAT, call your supervisor now." One of the tactical officers hesitated. Then his radio crackled. A few murmurs later, they lowered their rifles. "Stand down," the team leader ordered. "He checks out." It took all of 2 minutes before the agents realized they'd been sent on a false alarm. Instigated by a woman with a long history of nuisance calls and a reputation for being what locals politely called territorial. Then came the turning point. One of the agents turned to me, irritated. "Who the hell is this lady?" "She's the self-declared queen of the neighborhood, HOA," I said. "Thinks she can police land she doesn't own." At that moment, Karen appeared again, this time with a walking stick and a GoPro strapped to her chest. She thought she was a vigilante. "See, I told you," she yelled at the officers. "They're preparing for something. I demand you remove them." The SWAT officer looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Ma'am, this is a secure, legal residence. You're the one trespassing now." "No, I'm enforcing HOA safety protocols." She took another step forward. ignoring every warning. One of my guys, Diego, gently extended an arm to block her from getting close to our equipment trailer. That's when she tripped over a garden hose and face-planted hard onto the gravel. Instant karma. The agents rushed to help her, but the damage was done. A bloody nose, fractured wrist, and bruised ego were the only things she got out of her mission. A stretcher arrived 20 minutes later to take her to the local ER, screaming the whole way about combat camps in the woods. We didn't laugh. We didn't cheer. But man, the silence between us said everything. 3 weeks later, a formal complaint was filed against Karen with the sheriff's department. Not by me, but by the special unit that responded. Turns out, she had made 19 false emergency calls in the last year alone. This one, it was the last straw. She was fined $15,000 for false reporting, trespassing, and obstruction. The HOA board, which had tolerated her nonsense for years, finally voted to remove her as president. And just to add frosting to the cake, a local newspaper ran a piece titled, HOA, Karen mistook off-duty heroes for criminals, left on a stretcher instead. Now, every time I sit by the lake and sip coffee, I smile a little when I see binoculars peeking out from Karen's old house, because it's not her behind them anymore. It's a new couple, quiet, respectful, and fully aware that this land isn't theirs to control. Moral of the story: don't judge people by what they wear, where they gather, or what they look like. You might just be mistaking heroes for threats, and you'll be the one who ends up carried out on a stretcher of your own making.